Dave, WD5G was supposed to be here today, but obviously he's not here, so I guess it's up to me. We're gonna go over Meshtastic. We're gonna give an overview. And how many of you know what Meshtastic is? A few.
That's why we're doing the presentation.
Yeah. Meshtastic is an off-grid open source mesh network utilizing inexpensive LoRa radios, which LoRa stands for long range, for license-free text-based and telemetry communications. So what does it really do? All of these radios are Meshtastic devices. This is a solar box. This is one of the more expensive and better boxes because it has more power and it has a low noise amplifier in it, so it's one of the better ones. But I got involved in this probably a year ago or more, and I was involved with Arden. My node about 8 years ago was the first Arden node in Oklahoma City. So I've been involved with this kind of stuff for quite a while. But when Meshtastic came out, these are inexpensive devices. Arden devices can be a little more expensive, but about $15. Okay? And then you go to the more expensive. This one is $129. But you can send messages back and forth to each other, and they're on channels. Now, what's a channel? A channel would be kind of like a mailbox. But this channel, let me see if I can, I don't know if this is working.
What frequency band is this on?
33 centimeters, 915 megs. And we'll get into that here
Are
shortly.
the difference in antennas just the gain?
Um,
Because there's quite a disparity.
Yes, yeah. And the better antenna you have, the better off you're going to be. So this is more gain than this one or this one. These are the ones that have the less. These are just minimal antennas. But you can put whatever kind of money you want into it, and can you go crazy? Yep. So let's talk about telemetry. These devices, not all of them, but like this one, and these two, and this one, and even this one, you can put telemetry devices in them and attach them to the board, i.e. temperature sensors, stuff like that. The sky's the limit. There are about probably 20 different sensors that you can put in these boxes. Is it ham radio only? Nope. Why? Well, these things will do encryption. We all know that you can't encrypt stuff in ham radio. But hams, there's a configuration item in here where you put your call sign in and you put a name to it. Do you want to use your ham radio call sign? If you say no, then you have the option of turning on or off encryption within the configuration item yourself. Since a lot of the stuff that you see going on, and I don't know if I'll have to be able to get to the mesh map, but there's a lot of people that have Meshtastic devices that are not hams. So, why do I care whether I'm a ham? Well, if you use your call sign and you actually say, yes, I'm an amateur operator, it automatically turns the encryption off in that device. Okay? So, you don't have to worry about that. If you don't use your call sign, and you don't really care whether people know you're a ham or not, then it doesn't, unless you want to turn it off. Because you're not going to be used, if you don't put your call sign in there and you don't use your call sign as part of it, then nobody knows you're a ham. Now, I use my call sign, but I don't tell it that. In other words, some of these devices are AA5KD station G2. Okay, that lets people know I'm an amateur, but I'm not using my call sign as part of a text message that I might be sending to Lucian. So, it doesn't encrypt it. So, bottom line. And again, it uses the 33 centimeter band. United States, the frequency is 915 megahertz. Those frequencies are specifically for the United States. So if you decide to buy a Meshtastic unit, make sure that when you're buying it, you get the one that says 915 megahertz, or else you won't be talking to anybody. You'll be sitting there, this crap doesn't work. It's because you're on the wrong frequency. So, long range, the record for one of these devices is 331 kilometers. No phone required for mesh communications because it's RF. Now, granted, unless you're using an outside antenna, you're only running about 100 milliwatts, maybe a little more. But because it's at 915 megahertz, you can get out maybe 5-6 miles, maybe. Decentralized communications, you don't need a dedicated router because all of these devices have the ability to do like 8 or 9 different modes. Client mute, router, repeater, tracker, and they all have different uses. Routers should only be used by people who have their Meshtastic device way up. In other words, you wouldn't want to be a router with a Meshtastic device sitting in your house that all you can really hear is maybe stuff that's in your own house. And if you do make it a router, then you could just really mess up the whole network. So, encrypted communications, but not for hams. Excellent battery life. These things have pretty good battery life. Send and receive text messages between members of the mesh. So anybody that's on the mesh, if you see him on the mesh map, then you can send him a message. Yes, sir.
But you haven't told me how I get from that little device to something I can send a message. Tell me the end-to-end flow of an actual application.
Okay, we'll get to that. Optional GPS. A lot of them don't have GPSs in them. There's no GPS in this one. Okay. But there is in this one. And this one. Now this one's pretty unique. We'll go over that after the presentation, and I'll tell
It's
you
different
about
than
this.
less unique.
Uses a LoRa radio. LoRa stands for long range radio. different than LoRaWAN or Helium or the Things network, and I know you all don't understand any of that. But there's a web client, an Android client, and an iOS app. I know you can't see this, but it's pretty tough to get an Android so that you can see things on the screen. But this application that's running on this thing right now is called Meshtastic. And with this application, I can choose a radio and configure it the way I want. But what it does do for me is I can choose a radio, and it will connect to that radio,